Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of live streaming reviews with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. Um, Today, we're going to be looking at Warrior Nun Areala. Um, there was a Netflix TV show, and I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes, 2 or 3 episodes. I don't know why I didn't continue watching it because it was pretty cool. I don't think it's exactly the same like in the TV show. There's a nun that has an angel's halo put into her back, so she gets these kind of superpowers. And I don't think that is the exact same history as Ariella. As far as I know, excuse me, she was just part of an order of nuns, and that were just uh, warriors, maybe, I guess. I'm not entirely sure. Like I said, I don't really know the backstory of Ariella, warrior nun, other than the couple episodes that I watched of this. So we're trying this a little bit differently today because last time I think the being horizontal or landscape didn't really work so well. I couldn't see if there was anybody watching the stream, and that's pretty much the whole reason why I'm doing the stream instead of doing a video. Although doing the live stream, I found that the audio was a little bit muffled. If that continues, then I'll probably have to go back to the regular the regular way I was making videos, but hopefully not. So uh, this is Areala Warrior Nun from 1997. But before we get into that, I'd like to show you some of my own work. This is Random Access. It's a full-size, full-color comic book that I produce every month, and it's turned into a full-blown anthology. And number 34 is coming out this month, and it's going to have 20 pages of anthology goodness, which will really be really cool. And just some of the people to be part of the project are Paul Courtjohn, Jeremy Duncan, Doug Roberts, um, Neil Devlin. There's just like so many fantastic artists being part of this whole thing, and I'm really proud of the work that's going on through this. So you can pick these up at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin, and it's only $3 for a 20-page um, book. So that's pretty awesome, I think. This one had Shane Evans and Dan Goodwin doing the back cover, and Shane did some really awesome backup pages. They're really cool. So anyway, let's get into the Warrior Nun Auriella. I do appreciate all of the support that you guys give to Random Access and any of the other comics that I help produce and or produce myself. This is from Antarctic Press, which I am very happy to say is still publishing. It came out in 1988, and there's so many publishers that were. Um, Dan, you're right. That back cover is amazing. It is really really truly fantastic. Um, I can't wait to have this as the front cover for Cyrene number 3, which I've got so many comics that I'm publishing that I'm not sure when I'll be able to get to it. I'm hoping next month, but this is really a fantastic cover. The only thing I'm thinking is that if the logo goes here, it would cut off Adrian's head, and I don't really want to do that. Doing different logos, you must find in printing your comics or publishing your comics that if you don't plan for it being a cover, then you kind of have to move the logo around. So I might tilt the logo here or something like that, which would be kind of cool. Yeah, yeah, this is really awesome. I love the lighting effects that you created. And this is a pretty good issue anyway. I did the painted cover, which I'm really particularly proud of. It didn't print out the way as good as I wanted it to, but I definitely think it's one of the best covers that I've done, uh, especially with the whole design of the green and everything. Um, Yeah, yeah, it's a cool. I'm gonna make it look great. If I have to, I'll put the logo above it and we'll crop the image. But we'll definitely check. We'll definitely do something to make it look really awesome. So getting into Warrior Nun Areala. Dan, do you know Warrior Nun at all? I'm hoping so. So with this new thing that I'm doing with the profile, not profile, yeah, it is profile. I'm gonna have to be moving the comic quite a bit, so I hope I don't make anybody dizzy. So as I was saying, Antarctic Press, which is really fantastic, they started in 1988 and they're still going to this day. So many publishers, so many publishers just go out of business. They print, a few comics and they go out of business, or they may even last 4 or 5 years and then they just go belly up. So there's so many that happen too, and it's just you have to treasure the ones that find a little bit of success. I think the ones that have any kind of lasting, not appeal, but last in the publishing business, they find one IP, one character or group or whatever, just like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They got Mirage. Is that who they're? I'm pretty sure who printed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What was their first um, publishing name? I can't remember. Anyway, um, you should check out the show. The show is actually pretty cool. And Warrior Nun, if you're into some kind of weird stuff, I really was thinking that this was going to be more sexy stuff, but it really doesn't have a lot of sexy stuff in it. So anyway, I just wanted to say that about Antarctic Press because they're really pretty cool. This title page, I'm really digging the title page. It says the Hammer and the Holocaust. I really need to work on the title page for Random Access. It takes a lot of thought and ingenuity and design consideration to think about what you're going to produce for an insert, whether or not it's going to be a letter from the editor or kind of thing, or you're going to be like for me, every issue of Random Access, I have a what happened before, or any of my other comics. I have a what happened before, and also a look ahead at what's happening in the new comics. So I love this. It's got really great design, really strong, great design, and it's the Hammer and the Holocaust, Part One, the Anvil, because this is issue number one. There's a lot of different issue number ones of Ariella the Warrior Nun, and this is actually like between $10 and $12. I saw it on eBay, so it's not really number one. Number one, the first number one I think was in 1988, and that was done completely by Ben Dunn, and who is the co-creator of Antarctic Press. So Part One, The Anvil, written by Bishop Barry Laiga, penciled by brother Brian Denham, and I love the whole leaning into the whole religious aspect of things. Inked by Saint Sam Della Rosa, colored by Padre Pat Duke, lettered by Father Joe Wolf and the Eye, and covered by Brian Dunham, Kelsey Shannon, Pat Duke. So all this stuff, they're like, that was cute and everything, but let's just move on to the next stuff. So it starts off on the first page, and it's during Nazi forced labor camp outside Auschwitz, Poland, February 1945. No, no. So I'm thinking this is 1997. I'm thinking they saw X-Men, the first X-Men movie, and they thought, as I did, how amazing that was, the beginning of the first X-Men movie. I mean, they all have good and bad parts about them, but I really loved the first X-Men movie and the very beginning of it. I was like enthralled by the beginning of it. I did like the rest of it. I did like, Wolverine and Magneto and all this stuff, all that stuff. But the beginning really, it rooted the whole storyline into reality instead of it being just a mutant thing, instead of a Marvel Comics thing. It was really rooted into reality, and I kind of think that's what they were kind of thinking of doing here. And there's somebody saying no, no, and then it kind of just zips forward to the future or now modern times. 1997 anyway. That is modern times. It draws it, or really the art. I'm not going to go back like I normally do and look at the art and the writing separately. I'm just going to kind of, give my thoughts about the art and the writing as I go along. The writing is pretty good and the art is very good. It's very imagey, And whether or not you like the image style of art, that is completely up to you. And you know, that is, if you like it, that's great. If you don't, that's okay too. I am going to, no, I'm not. I'm not going to mess anything up by trying to change the camera angle or anything. But we have the nun here who is, her name is Shannon, and she's a warrior nun, and she's kind of just thinking about, well, let's just read the narration. I don't have time for this. Oh, wait. New York City, tomorrow. Yes, I understand, Mother Superior, Superion. I'm not questioning your decision. I just, yes, of course. God be with you. I don't have time for this. A new class of potential warrior nuns arriving within the hour. I'm the only warrior nun within 1,000 miles. I have to be ready. So she's training a bunch of new warrior nuns, which is really cool. And I'm just going to slide it over actually because this is actually a two-page spread, which I like this more than a regular two-page spread because it gives you panels, so it lets you focus in on some of the storyline and some of the stuff like that. But it also gives you a really nice wide view of everything. It gives you a nice, good section here, whereas before you would have had to have moved her over and you wouldn't have gotten this panel stuff going on. And that would, it just makes it easier to read, easier to understand, but it still gives you some um, some aspect of a regular page setup, which is really cool. I do notice the nipples on Warrior Nun Shannon. I don't know if they're all like that or they just decided to make a sexy thing. As I said, I thought this comic was going to be a little sexier, which I don't know. That's just kind of what I thought was going to be. Warrior Nun was going to be a sexy thing. Um, but then we go over here, and she goes into the other room because she hears blam blam, and it's this kid. I don't know who this is, but it's this kid playing with these action figures, and I think the action figures are is that Prophet, or I think it has something to do with um, uh, what's his name? Um, Youngblood and stuff like that. She's talking to the kid, and the kid has these action figures. Like I said, Rob Liefeld's Youngblood, and she's talking about how is shooting and do you really think violence is fun? And he says, "Gee, it's just play acting." And one of the things that I want to say about this page is that in this panel, you're like, oh, this is a little kid. Doesn't really translate that well to little kids. Little kids are incredibly, tremendously difficult to draw. I don't care who you are. It is probably the hardest thing to draw is little kids and children. So you know, just them attempting it is a great thing. But then you go to the next panel and you can see they're doing a little bit better. I think some of this was the pose that he chose. He chose to do a kind of a worm's eye view of the kid. So it gave kind of a little bit of a hard way to kind of show that he's a child instead of this, which it shows his whole body and it shows his bigger head because that's what children are. They're big heads, long arms, big ears, big noses. Oh, maybe not big nose, small nose actually, because they're not like clowns. But it's they're really hard to draw. And then he does a really fantastic job in this last panel of showing that he really is a kid. So we go to the next page and let's read a little bit more of the narration to get more of sense of what we're doing. Or maybe it's what happens when a boy grows up with a sword wielding nun for a role model. So I don't know the connection between the boy and Shannon the warrior nun. If anybody out there knows anything about the whole warrior nun series or comics or anything, just let me know because I'm really kind of interested in that. I do have a when I picked this up, I got a warrior nun uh, glory crossover. So I'm going to be doing that at some point. So I think that's kind of intriguing because I don't know. I did glory the Alan Moore glory though, so I don't know if he only did that one issue or he did two issues or something like that. So I don't know if Rob Liefeld, who actually created Glory, um, had anything to do with the crossover or not, but we will see. So she just kind of walks into one of the father's control rooms or whatever. So I don't know if churches really do have computer rooms. Anybody who's religious out there, let me know that too. But in this universe, they have like mega dookie computers with all sorts of satellite hookups and links and stuff like that. I assume that was created by the Pope and the Vatican and all that stuff, and it's all a giant network of computer stuff and stuff like going on like that. But I think that's interesting. And one of the other things is that they're warrior nuns and there's magic priests. The priests like have some sort of magical powers or something like that, and that's really kind of interesting. But because it kind of deviates away from this whole archetypical, um, priests and nuns don't really do anything. They don't have any kind of fightingness, or it just kind of it adds a little bit of a depth and almost like a what if. One of my favorite things are the Templars, and the Templars were, to me, were had some sort of satanic ritual thing going on, which I think is super interesting. And I love the Knights Templar, and because just that's just the tip of the iceberg. They have a whole another level to them that I think is really cool. But she kind of is eavesdropping on this conversation that the one of the magical priests is having with, I think he's either the archbishop or the yeah, I'm pretty sure he's the archbishop. Um, and the archbishop and he are talking about the warrior nuns and who they are, and whether or not they really belong in the modern Catholic Church and what they're supposed to do. I love this pose here. One of the things about this artwork is I really like it, and it is super imagey. And I mean, you look at these faces, and it's classic Jim Lee stuff. And but it's a little bit more complex than that. It's got more poses. There's like this artist who is brother Brian Denham. I don't know what other stuff he's done. If anybody knows other stuff that he's done, let me know. But he's really pretty good. And one of the things I really love the pose that he does here, and there's some other parts that I think are really fantastic. He does have these moments where it's just your regular image pose. Um, I'll show that once I see it. It's usually when he's trying to make her sexy. But she's like kneeling down here, and that's a really nice pose here. This is kind of a little weird, but and since when do nuns wear the tightest uniforms ever? But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I really love the poses that he's giving, and so they're having this little conflict about whether the nuns are good or bad, and I think his thing name is Father Gomez. That's this guy here who is talking to the Archbishop, and he's saying he's gonna keep a tight lid on the warrior nuns and make sure they don't go stray too far off the path and stuff like that, which is really, it is what it is. So then we go to another scene, um, which I'm not entirely sure of. She wanders away. I think she wanders away from our Father Gomez. I wish this was backwards, because if she's looking this way, she's looking away from the page, and if this is backwards, then it would have been going into the page, and she could have even been looking down, and it could have been pointing to this. Or I guess she is kind of looking down, but for me, her eyes are almost going this way. If she was looking down a little bit more, I think it would have been good, because that's what you really want to do, is have the eyes go from panel to panel, from page to page, um, seamlessly. And one of the problems that this comic has actually is that some of the things are difficult, not very difficult to read, but somewhat difficult to read. And I'm really um, I had to reread a few things sometimes. But this is almost there. If she'd been looking down a little bit further down, I would have gone that route particularly. But then also here, the lettering, it's really hard to figure out where you're supposed to read. You go from here, 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 or you go here, 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 here. So it's really kind of difficult to read. in any kind of real manner. But you make it through it, and it's really just a prayer or um, I don't know what you call it when a priest is saying his sermon. Yeah, it's a sermon, and he's talking about the body of Christ and the blood of Christ and all that stuff. And she starts thinking to herself about how she's having doubts about her faith, and which is I don't know how many priests and nuns and stuff really do have doubts. For me, I'm a devout atheist, pretty much. I don't really believe anything like that. But I'm wondering how much doubt, excuse me, nuns and or priests really do have in the real Catholic Church. Um, but she goes off to I'm not. Oh yeah, she goes off to where the new nuns are to be formed, where the new nuns are to be um, trained and tested and stuff. And she just kind of gives her first speech on whether or not she's what's going to be expected of them, what's going to happen to them, the rigorous training that they're going to have to go through. And there's one nun or one, yeah, I guess she's a nun. She's not a warrior nun. I don't know what happened. Did a lot of warrior nuns get slaughtered? I know she's the only one in the United States or in her sector, they say. Anybody that knows anything about the backstory, let me know. Were her orders slaughtered, or are there more in Europe that are just kind of like the above her in the order? But one of them, asks different questions, and this is kind of some of the things where the word balloons are misjumbled, and you don't really know where to read first. You read this first, and then you go here. But then I went here, and I was supposed to go here, supposed to read this. So I read this first, and then I was confused, and I had to read this, and then I was like, okay, this is a little weird. Um, but one of them asks, let's see, no, I guess she doesn't ask it there. But in the next one, she does. But here we have one of these, and I know that Joe loves the double page spreads, and I'm okay with double page spreads. I don't know how he feels about the tilting of the double page spread. I'm not a big fan of it. Anybody out there love the tilting double page spread this way compared to a double page spread the other way? Because I'm not a big fan of it because it takes you out of the whole rhythm of reading the comic book. And I'm just really not a fan of that. But what I'm really, really not a fan of is they have all of this narration, which is fine, that's good, and then they have the illustration here, which is fine, that's dandy, that's great. But then they cut off the word balloons. They have this crease where the stapling in of stuff is, and you lose um, full sentences, and like you literally cannot tell what you're reading, and that is really kind of disturbing. But like I said, one of the nuns is asking these troubling questions. They're asking about how does the violence ever go against what you think of as being part of your religion and stuff like that. But they also talk about the sword because they say the different things that they're going to learn, and they're going to actually learn their faith. They're going to have a vigorous exercise, and they're going to be trained in compassion. One of them talks about the sword that they carry, and is that uh, opposite of what they're feeling for their faith should be goodness and compassion and all that stuff, and to have something violent like that. And then Shannon whips out her sword, and then she says, I'll read it here. Um, the sword. A warrior nun sword is a very special sort of weapon. To the soulless demon or evil spirit, it is devastating. However, when used against mortals, it simply passes through the body, striking the soul. As a result, the victim passes temporarily into a hypnotic state in which he or she glimpses the hell that waits to punish his sins. So it's basically Liliana's sword, the soul sword from New Mutants or X Force or whatever she's in, or X Men, where it passes through everything living, but can cut through anything that's not living. Um, then it cuts to this a scene where it's in Baltimore, I believe, and one of the priests who is visiting. I don't know why he's visiting. He's on some sort of mission, and they don't really say. You're supposed to. This is number one, and it really bothers me to have all of these loose threads. Image would do that quite a bit when there's a number one. They would not talk about the things that happened before that you're supposed to know in a number one or that you're supposed to learn in a number one. So it's really kind of difficult to read that here because I don't know what quest he is and I don't know where the other warrior nuns are. And there's a lot of things I don't know the connection to the from the kid. I don't know any of this background, and I really kind of wish that they had had a what came before in the front piece, or explained it as the book went along, but it didn't do that. I believe that this is a picture of the priest from MASH. That's in my head because it looks just like him, and I think that is a little bit of an homage or a reference to him. So there you got this priest who's decked out in his priestly garb, but it's like super tight. It almost looks like a superhero kind of uh, thing. And there's a van across the street, and he apparently is one of those magical priests I was talking about who has magical powers, and they are actually above the warrior nuns. And when you go back, actually, some of this stuff says one of the questions that they ask is why can't the warrior nuns have the power, the magical powers that the magic priests have? And she just kind of gives this nonchalant answer of the what does she say? Um, Vigor or no? The priests are taught the essentials of flight, energy, externalization, and channeling. Warrior nuns are taught the healing hand, which enables us to bolster the body's natural healing abilities. So they're given different powers, different magical powers. The nuns are a little bit more physical, and the priests are more magical, which is it's fine. I just wish they had given a little bit better of the explanation why the priests are given one power. It's just they could have just said it's a male female thing, and that would have been that would have been enough. Um, but he shows up there. He's starting to do his nightly prayers or daily prayers, whatever, and then he hears a rustling going on. Look, he's got the cool gauntlets, and he comes in, goes into apparently, like I said, every one of these um, churches has like a technological hub where all of their big computers, networking system. He barges in on somebody trying to break into the networking system, and without saying anything, he's like, well, he does say something. Okay, step away from the console now. And so, but the guy is like, I suggest you leave immediately. In a few moments, I'll be ready to go, and then you can count yourself fortunate not to have been armed. So they're just kind of talking tough between each other, which is kind of cool. And then the magical priest gives him a blast of eldritch energy, I'll call it. And but the villain who has a staff, the energy just kind of either is absorbed or it's belted back at him or something. The priest is taken back, doesn't understand why his magical powers aren't working, and then he attacks the assailant, thinking that he's just going to defeat him with his physical martial arts or whatever. But the guy just slams him in the throat with his staff and then knocks him down and just pretty much pummels him. Um, then we go to the next part, or we go back and to the warrior nun, and the warrior nun says she's talking to her recruits and saying that they're gonna have daily workouts every morning at 5 o'clock, and for them to get ready and everything. And then she's she goes off into the yeah she sets them she sends them away, says that the daily class is over and for them to go back to wherever they're going, their rooms or whatever, and because tomorrow starts the lessons. She then goes into another room, and the priest Gomez is talking to her, and he brings her to the computer room, and that's where the priest from Baltimore is on the video screen, and he's saying stuff like, I tried my magical best or whatever to defeat this guy, but he whooped me. He smashed my face in pretty much, and I couldn't beat him. Um, the warrior nun says, "I'm going to be right there," or no, she goes to New York because I guess um, that's her place where she is. So she goes back to New York, and this, I don't know what this is. Oh yeah, this is the bad guy. And they're just kind of talking about how the satellite system wasn't in place or it was too encrypted or something like that. The information that he was looking for wasn't there, so he's going to have to go to another church and try to find whatever encrypted information or whatever information that he's looking for. And he's sad about it. He doesn't want to hurt anybody, so it's very cryptic. You don't really know what's going on. He's kind of almost in shadows always. You don't really get a great look at him. But then uh, this is her church and Shannon, and she's sleeping and she wakes up and she's in her sexy nightie and she grabs her sword and she goes into the alarm goes off and that's why she wakes up and she's got a metal hand. Please, somebody explain why she has a metal hand. Um, it's cool. It's cool. I like it. I just don't know why she has a metal hand. And so she wakes up, grabs the sword, puts her arm on, goes to the computer networking place or whatever, and sees the bad guy, Gabriel Access Limited. So he's trying to hack into the program, entered password. He knows the password. So is he some sort of priest or was he a priest or whatever? Access granted. Welcome to the um, Crown of Thorns satellite network. So he's busted into the satellite network, or he was given access to the satellite network, but he sees that the information that he's looking for isn't there. Ariella um, smashes her sword at him, swings her sword, and she kind of attacks him. And he blocks her, and then pretty easily he smashes her in the face with his staff. She loses her sword and goes flying, and there's just kind of a lot of grunts and groans, and another double page spread with panels. And like I said, I it makes it so much easier to read when you've got a double page spread like this with panels in the exact order that they're supposed to be in. So he sends her flying across the room, which is really great, and it's a good fight sequence. And then he just kind of takes off, and he can fly. Apparently, he uses his staff to fly. He's like Thor. Can the staff fly? But he can't. I don't know. That's a mystery. And you see that he's got this. Is he Jewish? Is this the Star of David, or is this a pent? I don't think it's a pentagram, or a pentacle or anything like that. I think it's the Star of David. So I think maybe he's supposed to be the wandering Jew. I don't know. Um, I assume that they explain it later on exactly who he is and stuff. But you get to see his face and the character in a whole. And he says that none of the information that he's looking for has been turned into computer information yet, and that it's still in paper form. So I think he says he's going to go to the Vatican to go directly to the source of where the information is that he's looking for. So he's going to go try to bust into the Vatican, I think, I'm pretty sure, and get the information that he's looking for there. Um, and that's pretty much how it ends. Next issue, still screaming. Um, there's this little back thing, which is really kind of cool, Arctic Blast, where they talk about things about the Arctic press attractions, where they talk about new stuff coming up and all that stuff. But apparently, this came out shortly after there was a widespread media. It maybe there was it was a slow media day in 1997 on that day, and one of the reporters, a national reporter, went into a comic book store, saw Warrior Nun, grabbed a copy, and they did this whole thing on it. I'll have to look it up on YouTube and see if there's actually any kind of news media, clips or whatever talking about Warrior Nun and what they actually say about it, whether they think it's blasphemous or whether they think it's cool or not. But they say the editor or whatever, Joe Dunn, who is Ben Dunn's brother, and they're the ones that created Arctic Press. He says that this is what gave them national attention, and they sold out of all of their backstock of Warrior Nun, and he kind of they do give attention to the LCSs in their local community, and they're really about promoting comics, promoting indie comics, and that is really awesome to see a publisher like this gain some notoriety. I mean, the Turtles guys have done that. They have been a fantastic resource with the Zero Foundation and all of that stuff that they've done for our indie comics. So they've done some really great stuff. But you've got to really pass it on. If you get some success, you got to pass it on, and you've got to help other creators as best you can. Um, which is what I kind of try to do in my own humble way. Um, so they're just kind of talking about that and how this one media push really pushed them into the stratosphere for selling their books and selling their action figures and all of the other stuff that they're selling. That is Areala. I assume Areala was their biggest property at the time. I mean, it turned into a TV show, so it's obviously got a little bit of notoriety there. So anyway, writing wise, it reads, I would say it reads a notch above the original Image books. It does read like an Image comic. There are certain things that they do that are similar. All of these double page spreads, they work well, except for the turned one. So, but the writing is pretty good. Everybody has their own voice, and it's not too bad. It's not too horrible. Or rather, it's pretty good. And there's a lot of things I like about the writing. The plot is pretty simple, but that's not a bad thing. That's never a bad thing. A plot being simple isn't bad as long as it's structured nicely, and you can read everything, not be confused, and you have fun reading it. You have fun reading the dialogue and all of that stuff. So I did enjoy the writing. That's not why I like it. The book, the art is really kind of where it's at. I really like the art. It's like I said, it's a notch above your regular Image stuff, in my opinion. It does have some of the stuff like this. Why is he a decked out priest? I don't know. Some of the poses are really great. Some of them aren't so great. This one right here is pretty good, but it's not fantastic. Some of the other ones of Areala are really good. So there's a lot. There's quite a bit to like about the book. As for a rating, I'm going to give this a if it's a 7 or above, that's where I would get another copy. If I see it in the dollar bin, yes, I would. So it starts at a 7. Um, the writing and the art bolster it up. I'm going to give it an 8. I'm going to give this an 8 because even though I did enjoy what I read, it wasn't really fantastic, and it didn't really hit me anywhere. It wasn't anything new. There was a lot of confusing things, and I do have to hold it back a little bit because of the sequencing of the dialogue and the word balloons. I don't know who was in charge of that, the editor or the letterer or what, but some of that is, you have to reread a couple pages because you really don't know what's going on. But other than that, yeah, I'm going to give it a solid 8, and I would buy more if I see them. So thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, this is the kind of stuff that I go over. I go over indie comics from the 70s, 80s, 90s, whenever, but also Marvel and DC if they've got some sort of connection to me, whether it's whether it's a really fantastic book like Born Again, or whether it's just nostalgia, my nostalgia creeping in, and I can see that. But yeah, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell, and all of that cool stuff. And also, uh, we've got this is Wednesday, so we've got a lot of cool new stuff coming up, more reviews and more comics readings and stuff like that. So thanks for watching, and as always, keep on creating.